How's everybody doing today? Everybody doing good? Everybody, all the food's good? Solid. So our vision here at West Texas Performance is we want to take regular student athletes that might not have all the opportunities and kind of give them an outlet where if they want to, all they need to do is want to get a degree and want to play at a higher level when it comes to sports. And with this Performance Academy, we're trying to reduce the barriers to have that performance.
One of the typical barriers today is, and we see this significantly, and a lot of what I'm talking about is drawn back to rugby because it's very obvious in that realm. A lot of academies are popping up. We want to develop athletes. The problem is we want to develop athletes that can afford to pay for it. That's a huge barrier to a lot of great athletes that I want to play, but we had an opportunity to take some players to Florida to a tournament last April, and two of the boys that wanted to go, that deserved to go, that had the ability to go, I went to their mom and I said, the whole trip is going to cost you about $650 each child. And she said, I got $200. Pick one. So we picked one. We raised money for the other kid, for the rest of it, but the one kid never got to go. And I don't think he'll ever get to go. He's a tremendous athlete, but he needs an opportunity. And that's a huge barrier for development. So our vision is to help remove that with people that want to get an education and want to and have the ability to perform. So our values, we want to bring leadership and development to athletes based on, or people based on sports values, mainly team sports values. And one of the biggest challenges we see, and this is coming from a coaching standpoint, I watch other coaches and they coach the players by instructing. They don't coach by encouraging. So it's, you will do this way. You play for me. It's all about the coach. It's not about the individual. And that's where rugby has a significant turnaround on that. You play for your team and the coach, and I tell my players all the time, I'm an employee of your team. I'm here to help you with the skills, but you can pick another coach. This is your team and you play for your team and I work for you. It's a turnaround in the thinking. Every talented athlete should have the opportunity to play. Now, that's ideal world. Does everybody have the opportunity? Does everybody get the opportunity? I'd like to try and level the playing field a little bit as much as possible and give more people the opportunity. Next slide.
Do we have the opportunity for the next slide? So as we spoke on earlier, in phase one, we were looking for just athletes that had that desire to get that, further their education or further themselves, really. So with this, in one of our other businesses, PRA, which is revolving around rugby, we were taking in other athletes from across the world, in South Africa, in Europe, and we were helping them find a place where they could take their talents and maybe go to a school here in the States. And with this, we have a really good opportunity here in Abilene with our 5 schools. And wherever you look, you'll be able to find whatever career pathway or trade you're looking to get into, or you might have a passion for. And with this, while they're developing themselves in the classroom, it's not just going to stay in the classroom. We're going to further that and teach them leadership and just go all the way to try to develop better people in general.
So the vision in the academy in phase one is you have the requisite talent to play the sport. You want to get an education. 2 basics. We have 2 kids in Guam that want to come to Abilene to do a welding certification and a framing certification. They can do 1 year of welding and 1 year of framing at the community college, work with us, develop their rugby. If they want to go on and continue studying, there's opportunity. But we don't close the door and say, well, you can't afford to go to one of the private schools, or you don't want to get a business degree, so I can't work with you. What do you want to study, and do you want to pursue it? And can your parents get you that far? Now, talking about the barriers of entry, in Guam, the Guam National Rugby Program has grant money for high school players for their first 2 years of education. So they are trying to get their kids out into U.S. schools. But obviously, they are looking at, well, where can we spend the money the best? The fortunate situation we have here in Abilene is there's only one university that currently has a rugby team, and that's ACU. So if a student goes to Cisco, they can play for the ACU team because there's no other rugby team in Abilene. So whichever school they go to, they can still play for the team in town. Now, if McMurray started a team and ACU had a team, they would have to pick one of the two. But once you've picked, you have to stay. So that's where we have an opportunity to grow, bring people in to go to school. Now, once we have them here, to move them up. Is it a further education? Is it just 2 years at community college? Where are the opportunities on the education side? But it's all about making it affordable to take the next step. In the program, I want them to learn decision-making, tactics, nutrition, how to be better themselves, not just be a better athlete. I don't want it to be an athlete student. I want them to be a student athlete to become better people. And at the end of a 4-year or a 2-year education, if they choose not to continue with sport, that's fine. You've used sport to better yourself, not just go to school to play sport. Because I think the biggest failing we have right now is we push people to do something in our best interests. And it's got to be in their best interests. You're clicking. So phase 2, I got frustrated. Ariana is going to school online, but really wants to go to a regular school. But I don't want her to go to a regular school because I don't like the way regular schools are run. Then you look at, in the past, I was on a board for a charter school. We started a Marine Corps ROTC charter school that was full-time Marine Corps in uniform, high discipline, extremely successful. In their 3rd year, they went into lottery and have stayed there. 550 cadets on campus all the time, and they're very successful. I think they're 6 or 7 years in now. And I looked at that and I thought, great, let's look at a charter school that we could maybe implement this so that we can get the kids making better decisions before we get them in college. because I think that's a little too late. We have to start change sooner. So, is a charter school the best way to go? Then Paul Mason wrote a article that was on LinkedIn that I read, and he talked about private school. Now, the big problem with private school is it costs parents money. Not everybody has the money. Once again, we're going back to the barriers of entry. These are the limiters. So my first thought was, well, could we make the tuition low enough? But then you have to raise money other ways. But Paul, in his paper, talked about the tuition possibly being tied to adjusted gross income. So peg it at, say, 1% of adjusted gross income. Someone makes $38,000, they pay $380 for their kid to go to school. You have a vested interest in your child's education. You have skin in the game. You've always got to have skin in the game. Otherwise, if it's free, you're not going to value it. So having that skin in the game makes it a little bit easier to try and deal with. I don't know if that's the correct formula, but it's the most plausible, giving us the autonomy to run a school the way it should be run, in our opinion, and be able to charge people so the families have the vested interest in their children's education. So I've been doing some talking to a couple people. David Hess presented here a couple months back, David Hess from The Forge, and him and I were talking, and the idea of a gym facility where we could have maybe an outdoor basketball courts and that kind of stuff, and a trail. And we started talking a little bit more about where this could possibly go. And then I said to him, well, we have the perfect climate here where we can go to school outdoors essentially all year round, except for maybe, 5 minutes in winter. And then kids aren't in school in the middle of summer when it's really hot. So how can we utilize open air? How can we utilize his training and his sports as gym facility and the high school idea? So the thought right now, and this is where we are really looking for guidance going forward, I'm trying to put together a development board to explore where this could go. Is charter the right way, or is private the right way? Possibly look at buying 100 acres. I found a couple pieces of property that are close enough to town that you could buy 100 acres. There's one that I saw that it's square in layout. It's got a pond on it. You could put a trail. You could put a gym facility. You could have classrooms with a big roll-up doors. So most of the year, you just roll up the doors and it's open air. You incorporate athletics and sports and into their development. A lot of kids may say, well, I can't run. Now you can't. But not everybody could run when they got started. Not everybody can do things when they got started. So you start somewhere, but everybody will be doing something to be off their phones. And I look at Ariana. I pick on her all the time. She was always walking around looking at her phone. I want the kids to get off their phones, get off PlayStation, get outside, play more sport. I was fortunate that I played a lot of sport when I was growing up, and I tried to make sure Tate got to play a lot of sport. And when he got started in rugby, I won't embarrass him, but when he got started, he was a big kid in every way, and his nickname was Lightning. Tate was not Lightning. I told him, I love you, buddy, but Lightning and you, not happening. But Tate developed. Tate took it on himself to become better. And honestly, last year when he was playing rugby, he was pretty fast. I wouldn't say lightning. He was pretty slimy, but lightning came. But you start somewhere. And if you introduce the leadership and you introduce the team building, you can build kids into better people using sport. So the question is, I won't keep looking back there. Next slide, please. So the thoughts are develop some sort of endowment that would spin off some sort of scholarship money. Start somewhere, get to 100,000, and get to 1 million, get to 10 million, and have some sort of endowment money that's coming off every year to be used for scholarships and to support players that can't afford it and athletes that can't afford it. Really work to focus on removing this pay to play. There must be skin in the game. So if you go into a tournament, it's $200. If you value your child's education and development, fine $200. Wash some cars, mow some lawns, get $200. The rest will be covered. Just keeping the kids focused on here in Abilene, here in West Texas. There's not a lot of rugby going on, and I want it to be a lot more prevalent because I think rugby can help people develop a long way. I've been fortunate to enjoy that. I've seen Tate do it. I'm watching Ariana do it. It's doable. Other kids are doing it. So I think we can do a lot of it with rugby in Abilene. But is rugby the only way to do it? Unfortunately, not enough is known. So we have to piggyback on another sport. The next best sport to piggyback on is soccer. Soccer in the US was nothing in the 70s. And then they focused on the little kids, and now they're like little rats running around and ants running around on those fields and parks everywhere on a Saturday morning. Why? Because years ago, they focused on the little kids. So develop the little kids. Same thing with rugby. We can develop the little kids, and soon we'll have a whole bunch of little kids running around playing rugby. But you grow it from the base level, give them an opportunity, show them a pathway. You can go through, you can do the best you can go to college, you can enjoy your sporting life, but know it's going to end, so you need that education to create a career. Next slide, please. So, end off with a couple things, and I want to ask Tate to tell us a little bit of where he's gone with rugby and what he's hoping to do on the spot there. But a couple of years ago, I started working with a program on genetic brain dominance, and that's taught me a lot about how to identify people to help them perform better. And I'll use Ariana one more time so I can embarrass her because I like doing that. Ariana, when she was playing rugby, like most parents, you'd yell from the sideline and you're encouraging, but the tone in your voice comes out. And if you're behind, you're sounding stressed, and that comes out in your yelling, encouraging. What I learned about Ariana 2 years ago was when she heard the tone in my voice, she stopped performing. The tone came before the message came. So if I was yelling and saying, get up there, do this, she would hear the stress in my voice and she would stress and she became less effective. So I learned to shut up and let her play. And I found a lot of other kids on the field were the same way. And that was a huge eye-opener. Now we've learned a lot more about genetic brain dominance and how it affects kids on the field, kids in the classroom, how to educate people better by understanding who they are genetically. Your genetic brain dominance is determined 7 days after conception. So it is what you are. You can't change it. We just need to understand it. It's definitely has been proven to produce better performance, and we need to take what we learn from it and write about it. Duncan and I'm sure, will be doing some talking about that. Part of my responsibilities at McMurray is to do research, and a lot of this is driving where my passion is for the research. I want to see where we can document what we're doing and what kids are doing, and how that can evolve into a business world, making better people and better performers. So I'm going to turn it over to Tate. The last slide will just tell you what kind of things we're looking for, but I want Tate to talk a little bit about what he's done.
So what I've done with rugby, right? So my name's Tate. I graduated in December, so fresh out of college, right? I started playing rugby when I was in 7th grade, and I was just playing with like a men's team, you know, just coming to practice, figuring out that I liked the game. Then fast forward, I was lightning in 9th grade. That lasted a little bit. And then I remember 10th grade, we went to North Carolina, and we started to really understand what sport, well, at least I started to understand what sports can really do for you just on all cylinders of your life. Just the discipline that you gain from just working on a sport night and day, just putting in the work when no one's watching. We did a lot of different performance academies to get to where we are today. I think we've successfully started 3 different rugby programs. When we were back in Delaware, he started a program. In their first year, they took it to states, and none of these kids had ever even seen a rugby ball in their life. And in one season, they went 11-0. It doesn't take a lot. It's just athletes putting their minds together and completing a task. And that can be put into every single aspect of life. We just come together and complete tasks. So with rugby, with soccer, whatever sport it may be, this performance academy is not just to create better athletes, but to create better opportunities and reduce those barriers of entry and just level the playing field. What else about rugby you want me to talk about?
He doesn't like to talk about himself. Gotcha from North Carolina. Well, North Carolina, he went to a Division I team in upstate New York, St. Bonaventure University, played for a year up there. Loved the program, too cold. When it got hot, he wasn't in school. When he went back to school, it got cold. Didn't like that. His dad, can I come to Texas? Sure. Got here very young, started playing for ACU, very quickly became the team captain. His leadership style is he's very calm on the field, very methodical, follows a plan. Everybody recognized that, and they looked to him. So his leadership came out. And that first year with ACU, they had never even attempted to go to state. We won the state, we won regional, we made it to the top 16 in the country, ranked 12th, which I was happy to point out to ACU was their most successful team on campus of all of their sports on a $2,500 budget. And that was players that had never played the sport. Some had played 1 or 2 years, but they got together and, like Tate said, completed a task. And those kids today are doing great things, graduating and moving on. But it's all about just putting your mind to it and getting it done. Any questions at this point? I know I've dumped a lot on you, and it's all about rugby, and probably some of you never heard of it.
How do you see the experience under your dad's coaching and with this specific model that you guys have developed for rugby? How do you see that affecting your professional life? And how do you see that? Mine? Yes. And how do you see that as affecting your leadership style when you do go out into business and when you do go maybe into the marketplace to secure employment or anything else like that? So pretty much just having a dad for a coach and how that affects a young man. And also, like, how Yeah. Well, so I was lucky enough to have my dad as a coach. When he's in the room, he's the best coach I ever had, you know, and we love him for that, yeah. But I mean, like everybody, there comes a time where you don't want to listen to your parents, you know, you get tired of hearing them. I had a lot of positive experiences with other coaches, and like I spoke about, 10th grade, started going to those academies. I've experienced a lot of like high level caliber coaches, and just so happens we went to the camps together. So there was a lot of interaction between, like, I have a Hall of Fame rugby player that messaged me back on Instagram because I met him at a camp, and he talks to dad all the time. So it's just, I wouldn't say that he's been my only coach by any means. I really, all right, I'm rambling. The point here is the best part of coaching that I've ever heard my dad say, and he didn't start doing this until I came back from college, is when y'all get on the field, I'm done. The coaching stops as soon as the kickoff happens because there's nothing else he can say. If you showed up at practice and you showed up for the game, you have everything you need. And from there, it's all about taking what you learned and then working with the people around you to complete a goal. So I mean, honestly, I think the leadership comes with just being able to humble yourself and understand every day I can learn something new, even if it's something that I do every day and I think I'm the man, I think I know how to do it completely. You might get showed up, and you just got to take that on the chin and keep going.
Phase one is, if it wasn't for COVID, we would have had 8 players here this past year. We have 3 that are waiting visas to come in. Unfortunately, to get into the US, if you're not coming in from a preferred nation, your visa is okay. The one kid is from South Africa, and he applied for his visa in January, and his interview date is September 4th. And he's like, what can I do to get you quicker? Nothing. Legally. Fly to Mexico, walk across the border, but have a problem going forward. And I always encourage them, do things the right way. My business partner in PRA, Performance Rugby Analytics, we've had for about 8 years. Him and I have been working on that. He is in South Africa. He is married to an American, and he's going through the correct process. So he will be here hopefully by June, and he'll be coming to Abilene. At the moment, he is advising the Namibian national team. The last 3 years, we advised the Kenyan national team, and they are both World Cup qualifying teams. So we've been training that level, and Reinhardt is at that level, but we've got the coaches. On the soccer side, I've got 3 coaches that are at that level. One is a national coach in Argentina. The other one has built 2 programs here in Florida from the ground up with kids through adults, minor league soccer. From the beginning, he's built them and done very well with them, and he's just waiting to come to Abilene. And then there's one other that's already here in Abilene. So we've got the infrastructure. We've got players coming in for rugby from overseas. We are looking to bring in more for soccer, but we haven't pulled the trigger on it so much because everything's been so uncertain. Once we get them in and we get back to relatively normal, I think we'll see a lot more kids coming in. I've got about 9 or 10 recruiting services I work with around the world that if I told them today I need players in August, I could have 10 or 15 foreigners here in August. We have the infrastructure, academically, cost-wise, program-wise, we have it. We just need to have the certainty that we're not going to get shut down again or any of that kind of stuff, which fortunately, at the moment, we're looking like we're moving forward. So infrastructure-wise, at the college level, it's 99% in place. The high school is the next 3 to 5 years. I'd like to see it start sooner, but it's not realistic. Got to find investors, got to find location, got to build it, got to build partnerships. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to bring partnerships together where it can benefit, where the facility could be used for conferencing facilities through the summer, used for sporting events on the weekends, those kind of things, to develop other sources of revenue, not just reliant on the school. But phase 1 is ready to go. Phase 2, I would say 3 to 5 years. The big challenge that I see with a lot of young athletes is they want to play football, which is in West Texas, it's guard, guns, and then football, and do not come in between. Rugby, whatever. Nobody knows about it. But the problem is, where to after college? There is very, very little, unless you're that superstar that makes the NFL. One of the players I've been working with wanted to make the NFL. He is a national team player, a rugby player from Ireland, came and played professionally in New England at the New England Free Jacks, one of the major league teams, but he's a kicker. And he said, I want to kick in the NFL. I said to him, well, there's football other places. He just spent 2 years in the European League, just signed a contract. He's now in Canada going into the next season, kicking for a football team in Canada. I said, what about rugby? He says, I'll get back to rugby when I'm done with football. But he keeps coming back to rugby, but he's following his path. We found a path to get him to where we want him to go. So there's lots of different ways, but a very, very small amount of people are going to do it. Rugby, you can play. I played my last game at 52. Now, Angie will tell you that's not smart, but it's fun. I thoroughly enjoy the game, and I enjoy the entire community around the sport. So it's definitely got something beyond high school and college. Answer your question, Tom? All right. If you have other questions, if you don't know how to get hold of me, grab me. If you do know how to, send me an email. I'd love to talk. Just want input. At this point, input. All right. Thanks, everybody.